Okay, welcome to The Growth Project, a podcast brought to you by AMPLOS. I'm thrilled to have Coach Jim Donnan here today. Coach, just first of all, as we get started, just want to thank you for taking some time to spend with us today.
Hey, I'm like an old maid, man. I'm available. I got plenty of time. I'm glad to be with you and just thrilled to tell the fans out there and everybody associated with you what a tremendous impact you've been for the Georgia football program and for everybody personally, just to have a guy like you that we can rely on, have so much confidence in. So anything I can do to help you out, hopefully we got a good story here and have a good time.
Awesome. Well, that's super kind of you, especially means a lot coming from someone who knows what success looks like at the highest level. So I appreciate that big time. Okay, I think we've got to start with, at least for a few minutes, with Lawrence, South Carolina, okay? Because I know you maybe weren't expected that, but as a proud graduate of Presbyterian College right down the road, having been to Lawrence, that's where it all started for you, correct?
Yeah, I was born in Lawrence and never lived there very long. Both my parents did. And the first game I ever went to was PC against Newberry. And my granddaddy took me to the game. And I was mad because I didn't get to play. I had my uniform on, but I thought I was going to get to play. I was only 6 years old, but it was fun. But got a lot of good memories about Lawrence and my family and the people that, my parents grew up with. But kind of a side story. When I got the Georgia job, I started finding out a lot of people that said they were kin to me that I didn't know about that wanted tickets from Lawrence. So it was pretty cool.
So you showed up with your uniform and thought they were going to throw you out there. That's the
Yeah,
Bronze Derby game, right?
yeah,
The Bronze Derby.
it was fun. It was, it just impacted me from that point on. I love football and all
Mhm.
sports, but my parents were kind of different from the standpoint of a large family on my mom's side, and my dad was just had his sister, but throughout they were sprinkled throughout South Carolina. One lived in Spartanburg and one in Beaufort, and actually one of them moved up to North Carolina to Maxton. So we were around everywhere. But the people that might remember my mother's side of the family, the Dendy brothers, used to have a really good grocery store and also a furniture store. And a lot of people got their stuff from them. And then my mother's sister was married to Tinsley, who was kind of the manager of the John Graham stores, which was the first really big group like maybe Walmart there in Spartanburg. So we had
Mm.
a good time.
Awesome. Well, I know that you would go on, of course, to have a great career in football, but can you share a little bit about like just kind of growing up of how'd you get going in sports and what did you love and just talk a little bit about kind of what that looked like in your early years.
I got tremendous support from my parents just throughout my career. They were the first people at all of my games and stayed with me all the time, and it was very encouraging. Back in the day, we had the YMCA up, and we moved to Asheville when I was very young, and got really good start up there, and then ended up living in Burlington. But had really good youth coaches and was able to play a lot of sports and just do everything from a standpoint of being around sports. And the one thing that my mother just was really tough on, though, if I didn't do good in school, she wouldn't let me play. So I really wasn't that smart, but I had to so I could play.
Oh, that's funny. So you were a heck of an athlete and then decided to take your talents to NC State, to the good old Raleigh. Talk like why NC State? How did you make that decision?
Well, when I was in high school, state was kind of rolling. They had Roman Gabriel, and Roman was doing pretty good, but Duke was doing pretty well too. But we had another kid at my school named Bill Gentry, who was my tight end, and we always said we wanted to go to school together. And I really liked football, but I liked basketball better. But I wasn't quite tall enough. I almost went to Davidson and played basketball, but I wasn't. I was worried about the academics there. So I ended up playing football at state, and we just had a good run there, and had a really good coach that kind of formulated a lot of things for me that I used throughout my career. I really didn't like him that much as a head coach, when I was there. But now that I reflect back on it over the years, he taught me a lot that got me going.
Mm. Okay, so here's a sports trivia question I want to throw in here. How many AC former ACC player of the years also played a second sport while in college?
I don't know. I lucked out on that. I mean, just from the standpoint of uh, we had a really good team, and I got chosen by Coach and Athlete magazine for our group. But it was I played tennis because I grew up playing tennis and I enjoyed it. And state was not a real big tennis school, so I was trying to get out of spring practice if you want to know the truth about it. But coach wouldn't let me. But I enjoyed playing tennis, and of course, it's a lifetime sport, and I still play. But it was a real thrill for me to be involved with the team that we had. And one thing that you and I talk about on the sidelines over there when we're watching practice is when you come back and watch the practice, or you go back to these alumni meetings, or and go back and talk to the players you played with or players you coached, it's pretty evident that the guys that were a big part of the success of that team are the same kind of people that are successful today. That's why I think it's so great to be involved in a team sport. And
Mm.
we were very fortunate at state, had a bunch of good guys that from all different backgrounds, particularly in that day and age. We had several guys from up north and from Virginia area, but we all bonded and kind of put it all together and really had a chance to play for the national championship. But we came up a little short against Penn State, and then of all things, the Clemson Tigers got us the last game. And I'll tell you a quick story about that. One of my first speaking engagements when I was stopped coaching was over there in Anderson, and they have a bunch of guys that played on that Clemson team that beat us. But our defensive team had white shoes for some reason. That was what they did. They painted all their shoes white. And that day, Coach Howard and them, they painted their shoes orange, and they kicked their butt. Never seen the wind blow like that, and we just couldn't get anything rolling. But they deserved to win. So, and then ironically, we ended up playing Georgia in the Liberty Bowl and beat them, and that was my first contact with Vince Dooley.
Oh, how about that? Well, I just think it's incredible before we switch gears here. I just think it's incredible that you were that caliber of a football player, but also able to play tennis in college. You don't, I got a feeling there's not many of those going on out there currently.
Yeah, that's not a real duo you expect to see. But
No.
with these new rackets and the speed to hit the ball now, I'd have a hard time. But a lot more people are into tennis now, and athletic type guys that are bigger and stronger. But back in my day, more of the kids played baseball. But always enjoyed it, and I had a lot of good friends that from South Carolina that I got to know. Keith Stoneman from over there in Greenville, and it was always a good player that ended up going to University of North Carolina. And over the years, we all played in tournaments in the summertime. And one of the things we were able to do is stay with parents and people in town, and some really nice tournaments in South Carolina. I always enjoyed playing, except playing down in Buford with all those mosquitoes and everything. I didn't like that too much.
I didn't know we had mosquitoes in South Carolina, coach. We got
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Okay, so when in your life did you begin to realize that coaching was going to be a big part of your future?
I'm glad you covered that today because some people, say they know what they want to do, and they just say they're living the dream and all that stuff. I never even thought about being a coach because back in the days when I was growing up, you had to go usually be a high school coach, which involved being a teacher, which is good. There's some of the best people out there, but I didn't have any interest in classroom or anything like that, and I was all set to go into a job with a group of people in the textile industry because, as you know, just like around Greenville and Spartanburg with all that Deering Milliken and all that, Burlington Industries, the big deal up there where I'm from. And one of the guys that I played tennis with in the summertime, his father was getting ready to start a new business, and it's the evolution of double knit fabric, which we all know made it big. And so I was going to work for him. And then my senior year, after we finished, I got to play tennis that spring, and my head coach called me in and said that he was going to create a new position because he felt like some of their older coaches were kind of losing their, weren't quite as into recruiting. And Coach Bill Dooley, who was Vince's brother, had taken over at North Carolina and was really recruiting, the SEC way. And he said, I want you to kind of be a freshman coach and then help with our recruiting. So I was married early in life, which was a big part of my success because my wife was my biggest fan. And we kind of grew up together in a lot of different ways because we had a young family. But the biggest thing about it was I wasn't sure that that double knit. This is the worst statement I'm gonna make today. I went home and told Mary, I said, I don't know if that double knit's gonna make it, and that shows you how much I knew about the textile industry. Obviously, it made it big. I said, you know what? Here's a chance for me to get into college coaching right away. And if I don't like it here, I'll never like it anywhere else. This is my school, and I know Coach Edwards will take care of me. So I started out right after my uh, ACC tennis tournament in 1968 as a freshman coach at NC State and never looked back.
Wow. So it came together that quickly as he put that offer out there for you and you gave it some thought and jumped in.
Yeah, he was, I think it was just, I was just fortunate because he knew a very good knowledge of the system, and that I could
Mhm.
probably handle the freshmen and do what he was more in involved, me being involved in the recruiting standpoint and going out on the road more, which I did. But the one thing I had to do right away was go out and make some speeches, like these bulldog clubs and things like that. And I never will forget, I was pretty nervous now, Drew. I mean, my first speech, and I go down to Washington, North Carolina, and we're sitting with this guy, and there's four people there, and we're waiting, and I'm saying to this guy back and forth, and I said, "What time we're going to start?" He said, "Okay, we're getting ready to start." And I'm looking around. There's four people, and he gets up and he said, "Boy, it's good to have such a great crowd here. We got twice as many as we had last year." So that was my first speech.
How did it go?
It was good. I mean, I wasn't nervous. I mean, four people. I mean,
For people.
you can handle that. I know. And then over the years, I started doing these big corporate speeches where you got 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Biggest thing is you just got to be yourself, and relate to everybody. And but most of these, when you go out to these bulldog clubs and or whatever it might be, the fans want to know about your team. But there's a real correlation between businesses and when you go out and do some of these corporate things.
Hmm. Well, and then I want to touch on here, Coach, because I want to make sure our listeners have a full understanding of. I mean, when I think about the places you coached in your career, you only coached at high level, well known. I mean, when I go down the list here, NC State, North Carolina, Florida State, Kansas State, Missouri, Oklahoma, Marshall, and of course, we'll get to Georgia here in a few minutes. But I want to talk about Oklahoma for a minute. And I don't know if you and I have talked about this before, but I actually lived in Norman there for a short time
Really?
years ago. Yeah.
When
Uh,
was that?
we were in Oklahoma 2009, 2010.
Yeah, good town. The weather's not the greatest, but
No.
it's very similar to Athens. College town, close to Atlanta. I mean, it's close to Oklahoma City, but really easily career wise, it just made a big difference in me being where I am today, mainly because of Coach Switzer and his ability to articulate what he wants and then delegate authority and let you do your job. But I was very fortunate to get that job. But we had beaten Oklahoma twice when I was at Missouri, and they were in a transition stage to try to start throwing the ball a little bit more because they just recruited Troy Aikman. And of course, everybody knows about Troy, and he had his first year. And Mac Brown, who I had coached at Florida State, as and was the coordinator, and he took the Tulane job. And he told Coach Switzer about me, and of course he knew about me. And I went down there, and there was a couple coaches I knew, and ended up getting a job. And sure enough, Troy, we were rolling and playing, and then he breaks his leg in the fourth game against Miami, and we have to resort back to the wishbone, which I knew absolutely nothing about. I mean, I guarantee you they could have got somebody at McDonald's to know more about the wishbone than I did. And we had to put it in a week because
Oh, wow.
all we had was wishbone quarterbacks. Well, we had a freshman kid from out in California named Jamel Holloway, and we just went on a tremendous run over the next 2.5 years. I mean, we lost to Miami that game, but then went ahead and won the national championship. And it was, my son was going to high school there. Everybody talks about working at 11 o'clock and sleeping in the office and all. I mean, we went to work at 8:30 and came home at 5:30. Man, we just rolled the balls out every day.
Well, let's stick with that for just a second. In that, Coach Switzer is obviously a name that a lot of people are familiar with, both in college and then also in the NFL. What was it about him that you could tell us that really kind of made him such a great coach?
Well, there's so many attributes that I can't really get them all here in a quick capsule, but I would say the best part about him, he's very genuine and he really cares about people. Because he's so outgoing and everybody thinks he's swashbuckling and all that, and kind of says what he thinks. Some people don't like that, but he always cared about the kids first, and he really did a great job of recruiting. And but he had a brilliant mind. He still does,
Mm.
and he's very I mean, I don't even know what his IQ is, but he had an appointment to the Naval Academy, but he didn't take it, and then he went to uh, uh, Arkansas, and ended up coaching for Frank Broyles, and then he got the Oklahoma job. But he was great at letting you coach, and he was just a CEO type. But he could run the offense or defense or do anything. He knew football, but he let you be your do your thing, and he was really good about seizing the moment, which I haven't said a lot about different kind of motivational things, but one of the best motivations I think I've ever heard anybody say was we were getting ready to play Nebraska in 1987, and we had two terrible injuries the week before uh, when we played Missouri. The week of that, when we lost our quarterback and our fullback, which in the wishbone is the nucleus of it, no question. So we were ranked number one at that time, and Nebraska was two. But unfortunately, we weren't ready to put some new guys in there. We'd been playing Charles Thompson and some other guys, but I would say it's not unfortunate. He was good enough, really. But so what happened was Switzer gets the whole team out there on Wednesday, and as you know, coming to practice, Tuesday's a rough day. Wednesday, you usually just kind of putting the hay in the barn, and then Thursdays, you just kind of go over everything. But Wednesday's a big day, and it's about halfway through practice, and he calls the whole team up, and he starts asking these defensive players like, "Hey, are you going to go to the game?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Well, I just want to make sure you're going." And he hit about four of them. He said, "Listen to everybody talk. We don't have a chance. We don't even need to show up. I just want to make sure you're going to go." He said, "I'm going to tell you how good I feel about it. I feel so good. We're not even going to practice anymore." And of course, all the coaches are thinking, "Good God, we need to go over everything." But those players lit into the fact that here's Barry Switzer, the all-time winningest coach ever at that point. His record against Tom Osborne, 12-5 with a tie, felt so good about it that we didn't even need to practice. And we went up there and beat Nebraska with our second team quarterback on national television. It was an unbelievable victory.
Wow. So did he really follow through on that? Y'all stopped practicing?
Hey, those guys were in the locker room before he gave them a chance to do anything. I mean, it was, have you ever seen a team leave the field fast? It's faster than you've ever seen. But it really, I mean,
Mm,
anything we did that day, Drew, would have been nothing compared to what we got
that's
accomplished.
awesome.
The mind, it's just the fact that he just said, "We got more than 2 players on this team. We're gonna find a way to play." And then
Mm,
he told them that Charles Thompson was gonna shock the nation because Charles was a little bit different style than Jamel because he was faster. Jamel's more of a run up inside type guy, and Charles really outran him on the perimeter several times.
mm. So you have a great run at OU, and then, in part due to all that success, get the opportunity to go be the head coach at Marshall, and a ton of success at Marshall, which you then transitioned to good old Athens, right? Beginning in '96 as the head
Right.
coach at Georgia.
Yeah, I tell you the
Um,
thing about Marshall that was so good. I want to make sure to. It's kind of ironic we're playing them this next
yeah,
week, but the people in West Virginia were so receptive to me, and they were hungry. Everybody knows about the plane crash and all that happened 15, 16 years before I got there, but they really wanted to. Were in the midst of building a new stadium, moving up to 1A, and doing all the things that they hoped that they could make with the program. But that little corner of the state, everybody's behind Marshall. I had unbelievable support from the outside and the community, and kind of got to do my own blueprint as far as what we did with the staff and what we did with the recruiting and all that. And Coach Switzer told me when I took the job, he said, "Get you some young coaches that are going to stick with you and are going to be there. So instead of just giving a friend a job, it's probably going to take some the next year." And one of the proud parts of the success fact there is the 6 young guys I brought in there, 4 of them became head coaches. So
wow,
we all did it together, but we had a lot of support and had an unbelievable run up there. And the other thing that happened, which was hard to leave Marshall, they didn't lose a game for 2 years after we left. So we left them, and that was the year Randy Moss was coming in, transferring from Florida State, which I didn't have a lot to do with, but he was coming in. And Chad Pennington was our quarterback, and then several other pro type players. But they did a great job. Coach Pruitt taking over and taking it on, and then they became 1A. But I would have never been the Georgia coach or any coach without Marshall. It was a tremendous time in my life.
wow. Okay, so I wasn't thinking about your knowledge of Chad Pennington. I got to tell a quick Chad Pennington story, okay, before we get to
Yeah,
the next part. So to turn back the clock, and I think it must have been 1995 or not. It was either 95 or 96. Because I grew up in Knoxville where Chad did, and I'm a freshman. He's a senior, and I'm playing on the varsity team in basketball that winter, and we're playing Chad's team. And I check into the game about midway through the second quarter. Didn't play a whole lot as a freshman, played a little bit here and there. So I get in the game, and soon as I get in, the first little sequence here, I get a steal, and I'm dribbling the ball down the court, and I'm thinking like, well, this is no big deal, right? Like this isn't that hard. Why aren't they giving me more time? I'll take that ball to the basket. I go up to lay that ball in, and the next thing I know, somebody comes out of nowhere, flies in, and pins that ball to the backboard. And that was Chad Pennington's welcome party to me of welcome to varsity basketball in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've never forgotten it.
well, that's unbelievable. You were playing the web school. I tell you what happened
Yes.
with Chad's had an uncle that lived up in West Virginia, and he would come up there in the summertime, his family, and they would go uh, on different types of fishing trips and things. And so he was up there between the ninth and the 10th grade, and we were having a camp like everybody does. And so his uncle brought him over there, and he was just a young guy, but you could tell he had the arm. And so I told him, I said, you're probably going to get recruited by everybody, but I can just tell you right now, I'd like for you to be our quarterback here in 3 years. And of course, telling him that in the 10th grade, hit home with him. And he hung with me the whole time. There at the end, they started trying to get him, but he was awesome. And then, everybody knows, I mean, got drafted, and
Yeah.
now he's a coach, and he's coaching up there in Lexington, and does a good job. His son, I think, is transferred quarterback to Gardner Webb now. He was at Marshall, but
Mm.
Chad Pennington, boy, I tell you, you can quality. I mean, that's one of the things that makes me feel so good when people still call you coach and everything. But Chad Pennington, we just had one of our players pass away a few years ago. That it was a sad deal, but Chad was got everybody together there and just showed the leadership he has. He's unreal.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Georgia days. You know, man, and I think it's cool to I can't wait to hear your perspective on some of the household names now, whether it be Coach Smart or Coach Bobo. What can you tell us about what you remember about coaching those guys back then?
Well, first of all, it was just a real thrill to know that you were the Georgia coach. But we were coming in here when Florida and Tennessee were kind of at their zenith. I mean, Florida won the
Hmm.
national championship in '96, and then Tennessee in '98, and then our other big rival in recruiting was Florida State, and they actually won it too. So plus Georgia was on probation for a couple things, so we had our hands tied a little bit, and the transition of trying to, as you know, when you take over a coaching job, it's kind of like a divorce. You're taking over some other people's kids. So some kids back then it's hard to transfer compared to now, but some of them were kind of questioning things about what we were doing and the changes we're making and all that. But two of the guys that really backed me from day one were Coach Smart and Coach Bobo because they were both coaches' sons and they knew what it was like to be around the changing world of coaching where assistant coaches would come and go or their dad would pick up and move to another job. And uh, I'm defending them there. That's why I think they did. But anytime we ever needed any kind of reinforcement, both of them were there leadership wise early on, and you could see they had the attributes that have carried on to them being very successful coaches today. But we didn't do a very good job the first year. I talk about it, and it was my fault. I spent way too much time raising money and trying to get facilities upgraded and all that instead of getting to know my team. Not
Hmm.
only their ability, but what makes them tick. I mean, you just take for granted that you've been in a kid's home and you've gotten to know their parents and you know what their ups and downs are. And we made some mistakes personnel wise the first year and lost some games we should have won and looked like we hadn't even practiced sometime because we were making silly mistakes, which from my standpoint is something I've never wanted to happen as a coach. But turned it around in '97 and got it going, and then ended up in the top 15 the next 3 years.
Man. Yeah, so it is, and I think probably a lot of people listening to this podcast, Coach, just don't understand just how challenging it is to take over at a place like Georgia, especially as you said. I mean, because that's back when Florida was, you got Werfel playing quarterback and Rex Grossman, and they're throwing the ball over the field, and you got the Peyton Manning era going on over there at Tennessee, and then you're trying to in the same conference
Right.
get to that level. It's hard.
Yeah, I say I kid Peyton when I see him. The reason he came back his senior year was so he could kick my ass one more time. I mean, he was unbelievable against us and a great guy and still is. But I think anytime you take over a job, and we'll talk about Kirby taking over here, you got to try to build your program around what it takes to beat the best team in your league.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
uh, and I think that's what Kirby did without question because he knew the blueprint that Alabama had. He wanted
Mhm.
to work on our facilities and work on our squad. And Coach Rick did a tremendous job here. I mean, very close to getting to the mountaintop. But as you know, the closer you get to the top of the mountain, the higher the wind blows. So, but they got
Yep.
real close. And but I really liked living here. My wife liked living here, and usually when you got 3 years left on your contract, you don't really worry about too much. But I had some conflicts a little bit with the president and didn't work out. But so we decided to just sit around here for a year and find out where we might go. And we had some nice offers, but I decided to just continue living here and have always loved the people around here and have some other interests. So, but when Kirby came back, it really made it a lot easier for me. I mean, Rick was great about me going over there and Bobo, but with Kirby over there now, I mean, I try to stay out of the way, but it really is like your own son being over there, being the coach.
Mm. Yeah, so let's talk about that, coach. So it's, we're about to start year 10 of the Kirby Smart era, which will kick off, as you said, against Marshall in 9 days. So you've had literally kind of a front row seat over these last nine, about to be 10 years. What's it been like for you to see one of your former players have this kind of success as the coach?
Well, I mean, it's kind of unparalleled in a lot of different ways, but there's so many people want to talk about what Kirby's like, and obviously you see the public persona, but really good family man. Like right now, they're getting ready. His son's playing junior high game, and I'm hoping Kirby can go watch him at least a little bit. But the idea is that this is his school. It's where he went. It's where his wife went, and it means he feels like he owes the dog nation his bet. This is what he wants to do, and I think the first part is he really is a very intelligent guy, and one of the few coaches I've ever been around that could coach every position. He knows the ins and outs of each position, and he demands that from his assistant coaches, just like he does. I'm sure he probably tells you what to do too, but he's probably a great psychologist too. But I think he's just a real good knowledgeable person in so many areas, and he's ultra competitive. But the players, even though he works them hard, they believe in him, and they understand if you do what he tells you and the coaches tell you, and you work hard, you can reach your goals. And well, goals are different for each person, different people. But when you look at the recruiting that we've done and the people he's put in the pros and the record he's had, goodness, 31 straight home wins. And last year was a great year, SEC champs, but still, you didn't get the last game. But the best thing I can say about success from him, though, one of my neighbors has a, a daughter that just graduated, was here for the last 4 years, and all of the fans that aren't Georgia fans and the Georgia fans know that teams you're supposed to beat are Tech, Auburn, Tennessee, and Florida. During that span, he didn't lose to any of those. He beat them every time. He also won 2 national championships, and they never lost a home game. So that young lady probably thinks college football is a piece of cake 'cause all she saw Georgia do was win. But what a tremendous run, and that's what I tell my my buddies and all that are worried about this year. I said, "Look, this year will take care of itself, but this has been kind of the golden era." And of course, when you look at some of the staff members he's put out, I know you had Coach Muschamp on here. He's got people that believe in him that he can delegate to, and really good staff, and he's got a really good support base. Dr. Moorhead has really worked with him as far as being behind facility wise, and I think you couldn't have a better athletic director than Josh, who really has worked hard not only in football but all sports to try to make it give the athletes the kind of facilities we need. Quick story here on that. When I was here, we were trying to build an indoor building, and we're also trying to work on an end zone, put in a new locker room. And I told our people that, and so I told Kirby when both of them got built here, I said, I told you we were going to have an indoor building and a new locker room. I just didn't know it was going to be 20 years when you were the head coach. So we got it.
Coach, let me ask you about this. And, obviously, there's a lot about college football today that's different than it was 20 years ago, like obviously 30 years ago. Um, what are the things that are just as true today as they were 20, 30 years ago in the game of college football?
Well, as far as the game itself, no matter what you got to block and tackle, and you got to have good discipline and not beat yourself and all those things about it. But it's just a little bit with the transfer portal and the NIL and all, and it is what it is. I mean, these old people like me, say traditionalists and everything, you're not going to change it. That's the rules. So let's work with it. But I think
Hmm.
what you got to do is understand, excuse me, to build a team, there's got to be some sacrifice. And even though you might be making money and all that, you just got to be able to put it all together and everybody know what their roles are. And Kirby does a great job of bringing guys in here early and gets them involved in the special teams to try to get them at least knowing that they're playing some, because for the fans out there, there's all these agents and all trying to hit you behind the scenes saying, "Look, you're not playing in Georgia. You can come here and play," and all that. And so he tries to get them on the field. And then I think the other thing is just the competitive nature of the sport. There's so many good teams out there that you better be ready every week. It used to be like when I was at Oklahoma, we had to play Oklahoma and Texas every year, and then the rest of them is very difficult for them to have much of a shot. But man, every week in the SEC, you got to be ready.
Mm, there's no doubt. What do you? I mean, you're. I see you at practice. I see you over at Buttsmere. You have a really good feel and understanding for kind of how things work in that building. What have you seen with related to our culture over these last few years within football? Like, how have you seen our culture be a competitive advantage for us?
Well, it's always been good, no question about the you know talking back and forth and good communication among the assistants and among the players. But I think what you had tremendous help during the COVID years when you really had so many restrictions. A couple things happened that I really think were beneficial to the coaches and the players. The coaches, every coach wants that last minute, and they're going to be on the road or they're going to be working that extra hour. But once you got in the COVID rules and you couldn't do it, they realized that hey, we can still coach, but we can spend some time with our family and we can do all these other things. And then the players were so restricted to their own groups. They weren't any team meetings because you had to have smaller
Mm,
groups that you had to work at getting to know your other fellow players a little more. And boy, they've done that connection, which you started out where they have these meetings where, let's say a guy's a running back, but he doesn't know the linebackers or he doesn't know the safeties. And they have 4 or 5 people in a group and they all talk about some of the issues that are out there, that maybe they wouldn't talk about just in the locker room. And I really think that uh, I'll tell a short story about this, how it connects to me. When I was a coach at Marshall, we had a tremendous tragedy happen, and one of our players got sick on a Tuesday, and he was a walk-on kid from that had transferred in from Army that was from over there close to Marshall. And he just didn't make it up in Army, and he got this mysterious disease. And they called me from the hospital, and I went over there, and the guy said, "Coach, this guy's in bad shape." And I said, so we started sitting around with him, and then before you know it, the next day the kid passed away. And of course, it's just you don't as a coach, as a parent, you don't really know what to do. So I asked the chaplain, and we got our whole team together and talked to him. And I was having a hard time, Drew. I mean, you just can't imagine the how bad all of us felt, and wasn't even thinking about the game, looming here in a couple of days. And this young kid from Atlanta named Derek Greer was in the back of the chapel there, and he started walking to the front very slowly. And I wasn't sure what Derek was doing. And he got right to the front and stopped and said, "Coach, I need to talk to the players." And he got up there right in front of everybody and he said, "I'm here to tell you today that this guy was on my team and I didn't even know him."
mm,
Said I knew his jersey number and I knew he was out there running on the scout team, but he was just a body. He was just somebody that helped us get ready and everything. He said we gotta do a better job of knowing everybody else and what makes them tick and all that. And from that day on, every time I've ever been a coach of any team, I don't let the players sit together. I mean, so for instance, if we're eating, all the backs can't sit together. All the trainers and managers have to split up. I want you to get to know everybody because they got a job, but you got to respect that and what's their role with them, and that's pretty true with most places. But the fact that that connectivity makes you know a little bit more about what makes a guy tick, because some people don't realize that the kid was brought up different than you. I mean, some
mm,
kid trying to survive just to get to school every day, and whereas you got mom and daddy and all that. So once you know the ins and outs of your own players and your fellow teammates, that really lets you know why they might be doing stuff and why they're being like they are, and then the coaches that meet with them get to know other players too. They're not just talking to the running backs. They got different groups. So I would say those 2 things have really helped our team.
Mm, that's a powerful story. Really, really powerful story. Okay, now I know we need to move toward the finish line here in a second, Coach. But there's one question I like to ask in most of our podcasts. I'd love to hear your perspective on this, and then we'll wrap up here in a moment. What is your definition of success?
Well, I think that the one thing you got to be careful about is you want to set goals, but they want to be realistic, and you want to be understanding that success for some people is different than others. So I would say you measure success in degrees. As far as football, it might be a team like Georgia is being have a chance to win every game, whereas like the first year I went to Kansas State, they had lost 20 straight conference games, and we had taken over a team that really was kind of the doormat of the Big 8 conference. But we won 4 conference games the first year, and we did so well in the last game, he left the scoreboard on for 2 weeks because we were so happy. So that was success for us. But I do think that a couple things about being positive and being a coach or somebody in a position of authority. Most people like for you to tell them they're doing a good job. There's nothing better than to put your arm around some young kid or whoever it might be and say, "Boy, that was awesome. We really you can't you can't imagine how much that helps us." But on the other hand, the worst thing you can tell them is false praise because
Mm,
somebody the thought that they're going to be able to play and they're not, like tell them what they want to hear. Sometimes young coaches try to keep everybody happy and say, "Man, you're going to play a lot this week. We're going." And then the guy doesn't even get in the game. And on my own here, I'm gonna bust myself. I had a kid at North Carolina named Amos Lawrence, who was one of the best backs I ever coached, and he was ready to play as a true freshman. He should have played the first game against Kentucky, and I didn't put him in the game because I was worried about trying to get him in there and get him ready. And it was a terrible job by me. And after the game, I went up to him. I said, "Amos, I'm just going to tell you right now, I was wrong. You should have played. You're going to play this next week, and I hope you'll forgive me because it was a bad job by me." He said, "Coach, I believe in you. I understand where you're going." Next week, you got 236 yards. So the point is, you gotta level with him, and that's something Coach Switzer used to have us do on Thursdays. We always met with all our players individually because you can lose contact with a younger guy. Let's say you're coaching a position where the guy's being redshirted and he's on the scout team, you don't ever see him, and then all of a sudden it's spring practice and you hadn't seen him do anything and you hadn't talked to him. We had to meet with him 15 minutes every week and say how your grades going, what's going on, where you going, and that's where Kirby does, and that's why he gets guys like Davis, was doing a good job on the scout team, and the coaches were watching him. And by the eighth or ninth game, they had him playing because they kept up with him, and he takes a little time in practice every day and puts the threes out there and
yeah,
takes away from the ones and the twos a little bit. But down the road, he lets those kids know they're at least looking at him. So I would
yep.
say success there. Tell them they're doing what they're doing and tell them what they need to do to get better, but also when they're doing good, give them a little credit for it too. And nobody likes to know they're not doing that great, but you need to level with them, that's for sure, and level with the parents too. We had a deal with the parents that the open door policy, call us anytime, but we need some reinforcement from you when all of a sudden the kid's not doing good. You don't need to start talking to them about, hey, they're screwing you over. And all. Say we need to get this straight and try to keep them because they know what makes them tick. And we had good communication there too.
Mm. Well, I tell you, this has been a really great conversation. I think about some of your past, College Football Hall of Fame, head coach of both Marshall and Georgia, star quarterback at NC State. You've done some tremendous things.
Well, I appreciate it, but the best thing I did was I had a great family support system. I think all of us need to realize here, philosophy wise, that 90% of your happiness in life is usually going to come from your mate and your family. I mean, certainly your ability to be out in the public and be out with among as a coach and all is great, but when through thick and thin, they're always going to be there for you, and they're always going to be what makes you tick. And I would just tell everybody at this point, both of us have had a little setback health wise. Don't take anything for granted on your
Mm,
health, but also just be thankful that you have ability to have people that care about you and that are going to do all they can to make you happy and be happy too. And but I would encourage anybody that as a parent or anybody listening that if you can get your kids involved in any kind of activity sporting wise, whatever it might be. Some people might be the band, whatever, I think some of the best people I ever met were our band members. It means so much to them. I know last year I was doing a little rehab, and one of the ladies that helped me, her son was in the Georgia band, and he was just hoping that he could be on the group that got to go to Alabama. When they go for just they don't take everybody for a away game because of the tickets, but he was fired up to make the travel team because he wanted to
mm,
be part of the Georgia band, and everybody means a lot to him. So, but
mm.
we'll
That's awesome.
when we finish up here, I know you got your own group, but you and I talk about motivation and about the different things to give each team edge. And there's not going to be that real pep talk that's going to make the difference every week, but you got to work on those kids' psyche. I mean, they got to believe, and it's like guys hitting golf ball, getting ready to hit it across the water. You think you're going to hit it in the water, and I think that's where you've done such a tremendous job individually because each kid's got different kinds of kind of things they got to overcome because what a tremendous adjustment. You've been a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior phenom in your own school. Now you're jumping into this place where everybody's good and everybody thinks if you don't play your first game and all of a sudden you're not that great, but it's hard to do, isn't it?
Very hard to do it. Well, let me just say this as we kind of finish up for a second. I'll tell you what's meant so much to me is it's been years since I've been the new guy. I'm definitely not the new guy anymore. But years ago, when I was the new guy, you were just so welcoming and warm, and just went out of your way to get to know me. And I really genuinely appreciate that to this day. I know that's just reflective of who you are as a man. So thank you for being that way.
Well, I appreciate that, but realistically, I knew the need for that. And when Ron Corson and Kirby told me that you were coming over, because I saw the impact that we had a couple places I had with the guys with your background, because there's so many ways that you can influence a player as a coach. I mean, they got nutrition and they got strength coach and but the mental area right now is area is something that you look at these golfers and tennis players and everybody along those lines. But I just think you got to be realistic for sure. There's no question about it. But you got to make sure that everybody's got a motor, and how can you get that baby running full speed to help everybody else? And we've got a five-star guy in you, that's for sure, Drew.
Well, I appreciate that big time. Well, hey, thank you for taking time to join us, Coach, and look forward to seeing you real soon. And hey, hey, we're kicking off here in no time.
Yeah,
Cannot
we're
wait.
gonna all these Marshall people ask me who I'm gonna be pulling for, but it's gonna be hard to go against the Dogs, but got a lot of my old players coming down here, but, it's
Oh,
gonna be
good.
it's gonna be fun to see some of them. But, I would have never thought in 1990 when I got on that plane from Oklahoma that Marshall would be playing Georgia, but they certainly are.
Wow, 35 years later. How about it? All right. Well, thank you for spending time with us, and we wish you nothing but the best, Coach.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you over there soon.